Hello and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. The advanced world, what every visionary leader today needs to know about what that means, what that is, where's your potential, and why are you needed so much right now, and why am I inviting you from the deepest core of my heart to step the F up again in your courage and in your leadership, in your self-leadership, and in really owning and pursuing that role for which you came here ever since the second that you were born, because now, like never before, is exactly the time that the world needs everything that you got inside, not only because of you to fulfill your purpose and to feel fulfilled and to have an amazing life and all of the things, but literally there's other people, there is a whole world actually is in the process of being created, and you are part of that. All right, so this is what I want to dive into with you, with all of you today. That's why I decided to make this stream and this session here public. Also, usually these live sessions every Monday are only run in my private Facebook group. If you hit my profile up on Facebook, it's just Judith Junke, my name. You will find that in the links of the profile. There's a Facebook group. You can join that if you want more of these talks. They are on weekly. But now this video is also going to be published everywhere publicly. I'm going to also upload that on YouTube. If you do catch the replay, please put somewhere in the comments, depending on where you watch this, hashtag replay. You can also put down your questions or any remarks, anything that you want to say. If you can tag me, it makes it easier for me to find this and to reply to you and to connect with you and to interact and get this conversation going, right? Amazing. That was it for the housekeeping for today. So let's dive into why do we need this advanced world? What is it? And what is your role in that? Why are you needed so much? And how? What is your next step from the great success level that you've already created as the visionary that you are? And how can you leverage from that point onwards more to serve that purpose that you were born for, right? So let me share my screen and then we dive into that. So here we go. The advanced world. What visionaries need to know now. From me, I'm Judith Junke. Let me share a few words about who I am. Now that you hopefully are excited about this world, if you have not followed me yet, please do so. You can find that my account's always under my name, Judith Junke, on Instagram. It is on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. It's always Judith Junke. Just follow it, like type that in and you will find all of my accounts. Please connect, please say hi and let's connect. So I'm a future maker. What does that mean? I create the future through tapping into my fullest power and my fullest purpose, which then is why we're talking here today, sharing with other visionary minds in the world across industries and help them unite and connect overall, so that we together can shape and create and bring more into existence this advanced world that I'm going to be sharing about in a minute. How do I do that? I am, by profession, I am a coach, I'm a mentor, I have several certifications in that field, in emotional coaching and positive psychology coaching. I'm also a certified energy healer. So I do very deep transformational work with the people that come into my world, which are mainly entrepreneurs, again, from different industries that have reached a certain level of success. I always classify my two types of visionaries. One is the what I call hidden visionaries. You've created success like the old way within your industry. You've done all the things, you created everything, you worked your ass off to get where you are. Now you have this inner calling for that more. That is more fulfilling, that is more authentic, that is more you, to use your voice and your power in a different way. And now you're in the process of figuring out how can you jump from one into the other? Where can you find that bridge? Okay, I'm your bridge. That's exactly what I do if you're that. The other part of the visionary side is what I call the visionary rebels. From the day basically that you can remember, you knew you were different. You knew you were thinking different, you were being different, probably you dressed different as everyone else. You kind of, maybe you were the outsider at some point. Usually you faced adversity like not many other people in life. You've overcome the weirdest things, the heaviest shit, and you found your way through all of that. And then you tapped at some point into entrepreneurship, whether that was more on the classic end because you're maybe a touch older, 30, 35-ish plus years old right now, or if you're younger, then you probably worked your way through all of the online opportunities of creating a business, making money, whatever it is, right? And you've also come to a certain level of success that now you feel capped and stuck in that. Maybe you feel conflict with other people. You seem to really have hit a plateau that you don't understand why you can't leap again from that, okay? While you know you have this bigger vision, but you kind of stuck in that space. So that is usually the two types, characteristic people that come to work with me to then explode and leap up open as the visionaries that you are, right? I also have a decade of a corporate career on my back. I've tapped into different modalities and ways into so many different industries. This is why I have a very broad perspective, and that is part of my visionary genius, to connect the dots differently, to look through complexity. And part of that is what I want to share with you in a few minutes. How do I look at the world? How can we find new perspectives that help to connect the dots in a different way, and then also help you as the individual to apply your visionary genius, all right? So that's my genius, help you get into your genius and then explode whatever you're doing in order to create this, what we're looking at, the advanced world. Amazing, my loves. So let's dive in, and please do connect wherever you find me with this video. Follow me, send me a DM, say hi, etc. I'd love to get to know you a bit more. Right, so advanced world, what is that thing, right? As a contrast to that, I want to say that old world, the old world, and that is the world that we know as it is at the moment. And I want to say the old world has reached a point close to breakdown in all of the major areas. And I'm going to open that up for you in the next slides a little bit with some examples, and just open it up on what I call the first meta level of where you can open it up. Obviously, in all of them, you can break it down into smaller chunks and, dive deeper. But for the sake of understanding and getting the bigger picture, of seeing even clearer what is happening at the moment, and as a consequence of that, what can we create in a different way and how? Okay, we want to stay a little bit on that meta level, on the surface level, to capture the bigger picture. So this old world, what would you say? Ask yourself now, if you listen to this, ask yourself, when you look at the world right now, what is the first word, just for you, that comes to mind out of intuition? First impulse that comes up when you could look at the world from space and you could observe mankind, the humans, how the world is working and rolling at the moment. Was the first word that comes to mind? You can also, if you want, type that here in the chat or put in the comments if you want to share, but just for your own reflection, what comes through for you? For me, really, it was this disruption and the breakdown point. I always get the picture of like a huge card house or several card houses, from all of the different sides that are all, they have built up, and now it's becoming quite shaky. So a lot of storm, and first card house start to crumble. Maybe the first cards have flipped down, and the rest of the construct is still trying to keep that up, trying to fix things, trying to bend over a little bit here, bend over a little bit there. But overall, it looks so shaky, and it looks as if it is about to collapse. So that is what I get when I look at the world, right? And if you get something similar, please note it is a great skill of observation from you. And please don't let it scare you, because it has to get to that point for all of the opportunities to come up. And you are part of the opportunity creators. You are part of the future makers. Okay? I want you to ingrain that deep in your DNA. You are part of that opportunity creators for which this breakdown, if you want, or the crumbling of the card houses has to happen, so that your genius and your brilliance gets the space so you can become that which you're supposed to be and deliver, okay? For your self-fulfillment, but also for service to the world. This is what we will look at, all right? And old, I mean roughly, if you look at the past 100 years, how we live today, including all areas of the world, how that got into the phase that we are at right now. That is what I mean by the old world. Okay, so let's dive in and be a bit more specific. All right, obviously we have to look at the global economy, and what I want to do here now is we're going to walk through 6-7 different of these bigger topics, and please know that everything I'm giving you here now is just a snapshot. Okay, obviously all of these bigger areas we can dive in, we can tear this open wide and deep, but for the sake of reducing complexity but still getting to the point that we need for this way of looking at it, we will keep it a bit brief. For this first part, I do have a practical example for you as well, because I feel it is one that is connecting so many different other parts and influencing it as well. And in the economy, we have the beautiful merger of the two forces that are influencing and running the old world with dominance, which is money and power. Okay, and this is one representation of that has come to a level of development and evolution that represents what I put down here, which is capitalism and hierarchical structures, which have gone beyond their point of functionality and purpose, right? When we think back to when all of these systems started to be created, at some point they were serving the basic ideas were to create structures, to create safety and security, to create a certain order in a world where there was a lot of disorder, where there was no structure, where safety was taken away in so many different ways and cases, right? So when you look at who created this, in which countries and which areas of the world was this majorly driven, created, and then pushed towards other areas of the world, right? Obviously, the situation still does not apply to all of the 180, 90 countries in the world that we have because of the effects of that, because of the consequences of that, right? But this is where it also has, if you look at the card house picture again, this has been building up and building up and building up several stories high up to where the peak now is. It's kind of, shaky in the wind, and then somewhere in the middle, there is a layer halfway taken out, and then maybe at the foundation, there's a major piece missing, or it's rotten. Think of that type of a picture. This is what our global economy at the moment looks like. And I want to give you one example in the next slide, a current thing that is happening with one big company and another company that is involved in that case. And for me, it represents perfectly what is going on within that box. If you look at that thing as one box, one industry, one sector, not even an industry, one big box as the global economy, right? Knowing it's way more complex, but just to have a representation of that, what is going on within that thing? Because the overall reason why the big card house of everything in the old world is crumbling, is shaky and about to break down is because everyone within, more or less everyone, is trying to fix things within to try to keep that thing alive. And we'll see in a second with the example why this is not serving. The example I want to give you here today is the Varta case. Maybe you've seen this logo here. Varta is one of the top 3 players in the world in household batteries, but not only the whole corporation does not only produce and develop household batteries, they also do some sort of industrial batteries as well. Okay, so, and I chose this case for 2 reasons. A, it is a very current case from 2024. It's happening right now, right? So the process of what I'm describing now is happening now. And I have some good insights into that industry because I've worked for 7-8 years in the industry around these household batteries. I worked for a major competitor of this company here. So I could understand and interpret what I had been reading before in a good way as I had experience in that industry, right? So what is going on here right now? As I put in 2024, this company here chose to go into insolvency, file for bankruptcy basically, but with the intent to restructure, right? So that case by itself is not very different, new, or noteworthy. But what is noteworthy is several things. And one is there's a special way that they've chosen on how to run the thing, and this legal way implemented and created in Germany. So they're a German-based company, but operating on a global level. So being a German-based company legally, obviously they have access to legal structures and opportunities to navigate these things based on German law. And in 2021, what has been introduced here, it was very interesting to read that, a new special way in which you can move through such an insolvency when you have the aim to restructure and refinance. And very briefly, not to dive too deep into all of that, right? Because maybe you are not from this kind of an industry, maybe you are an energy healer and you're like, oh my goodness, what the fuck? Why do I need to look at charts now here? What is she telling me? Listen, stay in this here for a little while, because all this case here is showcasing beautifully why things, or where focus is and what is your opportunity, because all of the focus is here, but something else is going on over here, and this is where your opportunity is. Okay, this is where I'm aiming and targeting with all of that. So the way that they can file for insolvency and bankruptcy includes a way where, as they were stock listed, all of the people who were shareholders, no matter if you are a private person who just bought 5 shares, or if you're one of the big holders, right? It didn't matter, it made no difference. Anyone owning any shares of that company, as soon as they published the legal procedures came into action, it meant there was a complete cut. The stock value went down to basically zero, and that meant all of the shareholders lost their value. So overnight, and this was legally before not possible. That was only enabled through this new law, which came into existence in this, in the backdoor parts in the pandemic where nobody was paying attention to these things anyways. So we created this new law. Okay, amazing. So that enables people now and companies to move in this new way, where even though you had put yourself on the stock market to bring in cash, and you can see in the chart here, they only went public in 2019, end of 2019, and now that's just 5 years later, whoops, everything's gone. So everyone who had invested, and you can see in the top peak times, it was more than a 130-ish% increase, right? So it was a good deal for a little while, and then things started to be shaky and things turned, etc. And now they were able to legally take it all down to zero. So that is one thing that is noteworthy. Something, which all of a sudden, even though debt levels were high, profitability of the company was not given anymore. There were no more outlooks. Everything that they had tried to move into different directions did not work out. So much money that they put in different cases to try to bring up something else, it just all failed. So a lot of sunk costs, if you want. Plus then, with this decision, taking out all of the millions from shareholders, cutting it down to zero in liabilities, if you want. What else happened now? It just came out yesterday in the news. They had liabilities around 430-ish million towards banks. About half of that, not completely, 45-ish%, was just cut. Banks were like, okay, we're stepping away from these liabilities. You don't owe us that anymore. It was about 200 million euro. The banks just went okay, we're fine. You can just keep the rest, deal with whatever else is pending. So that was also interesting in that amount. And then the next part, which is interesting, then was why I put this here. You probably also know, everyone knows the Porsche 911, okay, or the Porsche overall. And that belongs to the Volkswagen group, the VW. This is one group, okay, German-based car industry. And now we can look at another huge giant in the global economy is the car industry, automotive industry overall. And then you have this big player in there. It's not the biggest in the world, obviously, but it's among the top 10. I'm not sure if it's top 5 currently, but it is. It's huge German-based company again, but acting and operating on a global level. And I'm sure everyone here knows the Porsche. And so they now, the Porsche business unit, they stepped in as a part of a new investor. So around 32%, that was the number on the news, of money that came through them, because they have the new hybrid part in here, hybrid, a Porsche as a hybrid, which is then halfway through battery, right? And for that segment, for that business unit, they need the technology that they also own, which is beyond the household batteries, but it is on lithium ion coin batteries, right? This is part of the technology they need for this. So they are taking a major share in this sinking ship, if you want, to try to fuel this segment here for them, which they, again, and this is now what I find interesting, promote as the new way, the next innovative way, etc., etc. So it's 2024. This sub-brand of this whole huge group is now coming out and saying like, oh my goodness, we're going to be so innovative. We're going to have a hybrid, right? Even if you're not a big car fan, I'm not into cars at all. But when you think about, ask yourself, what is the future of mobility? What is the future of transportation? Do you think it is a hybrid Porsche? I'll leave that up to you, right? Obviously, it's marketing on their end as well, but as you see, the money follows it. So there is strategy behind it. And this is an example to me of where a huge industry with a huge lobby is finding ways in how we can avoid to pay money to shareholders, to banks, to, wherever you have huge liabilities because you fucked things up in the past. And now new money is coming in, and there's legal new ways that magically support that all of these processes are possible in a way faster way and in a way smoother way, and that you can keep moving on, right? Do your own research around that, have your own interpretation. I found that remarkable that this is all possible all of a sudden, and also with that kind of a communication of a very established industry that has a huge lobby, especially in Germany, but not only, right? This beautiful car industry, automotive industry. But when you then think, where should this industry be going? Where are the overall ideas for the future of transportation? Where are these things going, right? Maybe it's not a Porsche in hybrid, right? So that was the longest case, like only case where I wanted to dive deep, and you already see you could, break this open. It's just one case, one company. It's already getting a bit complex, all right? But to me, this showcases perfectly how screwed up our global economy is when these kind of things are just possible, right? This has nothing to do with market demand, what people really need, what the environment needs, what really actually is the future of transportation and automotive overall. Like if you think it in the bigger picture, has nothing to do with that, right? Has nothing to do with that. So let's move on. Next sector, overall, education systems, right? We're moving away from the global economy. This one is very obvious, I think, to everyone, right? So I just put here like the education systems we have today, they create soldiers and fixed mindset thinkers, because the way schools and education overall has been designed from back then, it was created basically to bring out soldiers, people who were not thinking themselves, they were not questioning something, there was no aim and no goal to bring about people who are creative thinking, who are innovative, who are questioning things. It was not designed to have a debate. It was designed, and maybe you remember that from math, when you had math at school, right? You had the correct result, but the way to get there was not the one that your teacher wanted, so you didn't get any credits for that, right? Makes no sense. It makes no sense, right? Because you dared to think beyond what they were teaching and came up with another solution. Boom, you lost, okay? That to me brings it really down to that. And I mean, we can dive deeper into this. Today, it's even crazier, right? When I look at friends who have kids at school, or I'm following the conversation of parents online who are, that I feel is a very US and UK topic at the moment, at least how I'm perceiving that, to really homeschool kids more. Here in Germany, this has not reached such a point. We're always a bit behind in these kind of movements, right? But I feel this is also a movement, because how kids are treated, what is filtered for them that they should be learning, and what is all kept from them. Who is choosing what is being taught about sexuality, about religion, about economy, about self-leadership, about history, about, there's a lot of agenda on the filters of what sort of information shall be provided, and our kids, your kids, are supposed to have access to, and there's a lot of control in that as well. Probably if you watch this and you have kids somewhere in the world that are in school systems, you will have your own story about that, right? So definitely this is an area that is crumbling, where the systems are reacting in an even more and more, I say, aggressive way in trying to maintain their position of leadership, of dominance, and in the structures how they are. And it's trying to pretend to be innovative. And I don't know, oh, now we're putting more tablets for the kids to use in schools, or we're trying to bring in more apples for snacks. I don't know, like these type of weird things that try to pretend that there's innovation and there's like, oh, we care about all of that. No, there's an agenda of information that is supposed to reach your kids, our kids, the young people, and it continues in universities, etc., etc. But I feel school systems are really, and then kindergarten and all of that is really, I'm going to say, infiltrated the most and influenced in the way of the information that is allowed, right? So then we can move over to health systems. Again, hours, we could talk about hours about this thing. So I'm just saying the way most health systems operate today, also coming, when you look back at when everything started, there was the overall idea, how can we provide more health and support and help for people? The overall idea was great, but then things went how they went. The whole pharma lobby became more powerful, etc., etc. Again, connection to our global economy. So that today, when you look at that, and it's almost funny, because it's a funnel. It is like a funnel. People are funneled, the health systems funnel their clients through one defined roadmap of medication and treatment. It is the basic narrative is, okay, here's your age structure, the timeline of your age when you are from like born to probably like 15-ish, I'd say. Here is the certain vaccinations, medications, treatments that you're supposed to have so you grow up in a better way. Have your own interpretation on that. When you become an adult, from the age clusters 20 to until you die, you have these certain boxes. Oh, now you're in your 20s. That means you are more likely to have diseases 1 to 5. Oh, now you're in your 30s. That means you're very high likely to have symptoms for disease types 7 to 12, and so on and so forth. And then this is the sub-funnels in this, right? This is why you're supposed to come to checkups for certain things. Again, I understand there's like a very small percentage that is really, taking care. Okay. And personally, I'm a big fan of innovation in, for example, like when you have an accident, the level of surgery that we overall have now that we didn't have 70, 80, 90 years ago. This is great. This is brilliant. What I'm talking about here, and I hope you get that, is the systematic distribution of different sorts of medication to a mass of people globally, right? And we've seen the biggest initiative marketing-wise, I want to call that has hit global level just 2 to 3 years ago, right? Through what has happened in the world. And that is something that is definitely, it needs change, full stop. Otherwise, I might go a bit crazy about that. Next one, next to the global economy, we have the global financial systems. Again, very interesting where they are at now. So it is the global economy, yes, but it's the stock markets, the resources, like, for example, gold or silver. And also, as we're in 2024, you have the crypto markets, everything that is, and then all of the different byproducts, sub-products, the trading areas, the Forex market is serving the desire to control while struggling to generate profit in connection to the economy. Are there overall areas in all of that are developing in a profitable direction? Yes, obviously. Mainly, the Forex market still is it's a high potential market. If you look at the crypto space, not all of it, but parts of that, there's a lot of potentiality. It's a lot of positive things also going on. Do we still have some things in the older like stock markets, etc., that are doing well? Okay, yes. When we dive in, you can find things that work, right? But that is somehow, you can find tiny things that work in all of these sectors. But if you look at the system as a whole overall, this is, when you observe this at a meta level, you can observe where liquidity flows move, right? And this is basically for, when I in the beginning said, it's all a game of power and money. And whose power? It is basically from the global economy, the top companies, and then it comes from, what we're going to look at next is political power, governmental power, societal structures. And these two interact in that, transferring money from A to B to Z, splitting stuff, this is their pipeline's playground, if you want. And obviously then this is influenced by the things that come through from the other two areas. And it's a representation of these. And the things, the parts in here that you see that are doing well, please double check every time. Some of them are doing well just on short term because somebody pushed something very much on purpose to create an effect that will crumble quickly after. But for the moment, right, there was a one-time effect, if you want, where somebody else then took the profits. But that was all very manipulated, planned, versus there are some things in there where developments are really sustainably going in a great direction. So always to try to see what is going on behind that. But overall, the idea is, when you stay or keep with the picture and the idea that this is the pipelines where the financial flows, the liquidity is moving right to left, up and down from the global economy players and the political power holder players, right? And this is the connection pipeline to move liquidity, which is interesting in itself, but it's a closed system, right? And that is also a thing. It's a closed system. And the last thing I want to say to this is, when we break this back down to people, individuals, okay, then what is going on in the world at the moment? All major areas of the world are implementing or in the development of digital currencies, like a digital euro. The EU and the European Central Bank are developing that at the moment. The current last plan I've seen is for implementation phase in 2027. Again, we're a bit slow here, I know, in these things. So if you look to Asia, look to China, this is already in play, right? Digitized currency. Look to the US, like the digital dollar. I'm not sure if it's already implemented now, but if not, then it is in implementation now-ish, right? The thing is just, they're communicating, we're moving towards the direction, of the crypto space, digital currencies like Bitcoin, etc., etc. This is like positive marketing language. While what is happening, Bitcoin, just to have this example, is stored on the blockchain. So its data is not owned by anyone overall, like a central organization. If you buy Bitcoin, it is owned by you and the data is owned by you. The governmental digital currencies, no matter if it's the dollar or the euro or the yen or whatever it is, they are centralized by these centralized political organizations and financial organizations, right? So once you get a wallet on your phone, this is how the EU plans to launch that, there's going to be a day, you're going to get a download on your phone for the wallet to have your digital euro. And from then on, this is trackable and traceable, because every time you will use this currency for paying something, there will be a set of data that is stored somewhere centralized. And this data, go and Google who will own that data and what sort of level of transparency will this have. And then take a look over to China to get a first idea on what is possible. And then you have what is always predicted, like in the doomsday scenarios. It's like everything that you do and purchase is traceable. And then if you don't own the data and you don't even have full transparency of what type of the data is visible to whom, it's going to be really interesting, okay? So just that as an information for you to consider as well, right? What is going on here and why this closed system is not serving any longer either. Last one on this one, or second last one, supply chains, right? Supply chains overall, obviously connected again to the global economy, but also on the user end connected to you. And I put here food and non-food, right? This is the whole big part that is also connecting to health again, food, and how can we combine implementing these parts in a way that is serving, right? But food today, and I know especially in the US, it is a severe problem, way more than in Europe. Europe is not perfect either, don't mistake that. But I know from the quality of food in the US, it's so much worse than in European countries, because fake food, if you want, is coming in more, right? Maybe you've seen these videos gone viral with the watermelons. You can bend them completely, they don't break. It's like rubber. It's like flexible. You can bend it down here and let go and it goes, right? Just one example. If you haven't seen that, search on TikTok or whatever, there's a ton of videos, or on Instagram, right? It's just one example. But the supply chains behind that, when we look at that, right, what is impacting that? And then non-food, a great example is the textile industry, fashion, right? How do we rethink that? Because the thing is, the supply chains, most of them, I'd say 90% of supply chains in these bigger industry sectors, the way they are designed at the moment is they're exploiting the majority of the stakeholders in their struggle to survive, right? The end product in textile, in food, right, is it has to bring in some more profit, even though prices may be very low or in the middle somewhere. But I mean, you know that if you go to the supermarket, how prices have increased, and everyone is blaming inflation. And in one way, yes, there's obviously a connection, but if you understand how everything is connected, right? I could do another video about this. I'm not going to dive deeper into that, right? But let me just bring this to the center of attention. At least from half of the supply chain, from where you go into the store, and that is one end of the supply chain, you buy something and you trace it back to it got delivered, there was a warehouse, there was a manufacturing site, there is the company who owns the brand, who's doing the marketing, etc. Who's doing the negotiations with retailers, e-com, whatever it is. And then if you look halfway the supply chain, and then you look at the other half, where it really goes down to manufacturing, the pre-products, the raw materials, whatever you need, and it goes back down to the farmers. Yeah, and that is the same in textile. If you go to cotton farms, or if you go to a cacao farm for chocolate, or if you go to, whatever it is, soybeans for even and I'm drinking that as well. I'm currently looking for alternatives, right? Our oat milk, all of these things, right? If you look down the supply chains, the way they are designed, because of the high pressure of profitability, because they're still trying to operate in the same systems, it's also a cart house that is so shaky, it's about to crash. And we've already seen that through the pandemic years, when supply chains crashed for various reasons, right? And it was not the major problem of the world being in the pandemic situation. Yes, did it have a huge effect? Yes. But were most of these huge supply chains in these industry sectors already kind of broken before? Also, yes, right? So we need to rethink that as well, because otherwise the supply of the things that we need, and mixed with supply of things we potentially don't need, but there is a drive and a pressure to create more because of the drive and the pressure of the companies to create more profit, right? So you see, this is a spinning wheel, again, a lot far away from purpose, from serving really anyone, except the corporation themselves, or except like the top 10% of the supply chain in the one end, right? It is all for the sake of keeping something alive that maybe really needs an evolutionary step, right? So quick window into this year. And now the last one, we've already spoken about this, the governmental and political systems. At the moment, they are administering themselves, and they're investing, if you want, into keeping dependencies and hierarchies alive to maintain dominance with no focus on the interest of people. I just put this out here as a very black and whitish position. But again, if we want to move to top level at the moment to see the bigger picture, again, right, then without diving into this, and I'm not going to talk here about any politics and right wing, left wing, or the US elections, any candidates or any parties anywhere in the world. This is not about it, right? This level is already too down, too in, and it does not serve any of the discussion here. but just to understand the way everything is administered, because the structure is the same as in the global corporations, in the global economy, right? You have a very hierarchical structure, and it is a structure that is profit driven in the first place. I'm not saying profit orientation is a bad thing, but I'm saying the capitalistic model of profit over everything, which is here in a lot of cases. And then also when you look at the political and governmental systems within what we call today a country, right? Just look at and reflect for your own country, wherever you are from, how everything is orchestrated, right? And then let's frame this. I know it's been a lot of information, so take a deep breath in and out. Maybe take a sip of water. I'm going to do this. We basically open up the whole current old world before we will now dive into the advanced one. This here also, how a country is organized at the moment, is a perfect representation where all of the other fields that we've just looked into briefly come together one way or the other. Because obviously, right, the school systems brought out the soldiers made to function and work into a 9-to-5 structure in a way, not questioning things, so that they can create income. From the income, you obviously have not only from the income, from a ton of other things. The state takes taxes to finance whatever they are doing, finance themselves also. It's a high share. I have to look up the current figure for Germany of, the total of taxes that the state is having as income, and how much just the administration costs of all of the different levels is before investing takes place into any area, right? So this is obviously one thing. The rest of the money that you as an individual bring home from your job, you know how that goes. There's a dedicated share that goes into a certain level of insurances. And then obviously you have to go to the supermarket and buy food, and then you have to pay for energy, for electricity, for the internet, for heating, for, all of the things, all of your living costs if you want. And then there is a certain share that is left, anywhere between, in the worst case, 50 euro or dollar up to maybe 2,000 a month. Let's just say that is the range where you can play. But then again, it is provided for you, the suggestions, how one goes on vacation. You are invited to buy a new car. You are invited to all of the consumption things is what's coming on in then. So it's a closed system that does not want you, and I know you've heard that before, it does not want you to escape it, and it does not want you to ask these questions and look behind and challenge the status quo in the things that we've just, for all of these sectors that we've just seen, where we've taken a brief look behind the scenes. Why is it potentially not working? What is the direction that is not serving anymore, etc., etc., etc. Beyond the fact that we probably all have this sensation somehow of like, I'm not so sure if all of these things go into the right direction, okay? So this is where it all comes together, my loves. And I'm on purpose spending a bit time to talk to these things before we switch to, okay, but what is the new? Because that is essentially where we need to get to. But to really see the bigger picture, how everything is intertwined, and it is really the whole world as it is, including all of these areas. They all fit together, but all of them, each of the card houses is shaky by itself. So obviously the whole construct globally is also shaky. And the more shaky it gets, the more it tries to keep itself alive and survive. And the more it does that, it needs you to stay within, because the more of us who are leaving, it's another part of the card house that is breaking down, right? It's destabilizing. The more people step out of it and have their own ways, their own opinions, their own new creations, counter alternatives to any of these sectors, right? The less stable the old system is, and the less reliable and predictable. And also it comes down then to income for these governmental structures in form of tax. The more of us who leave that system and create somewhere else, somehow else, is one person more who's not delivering on the tax that is kind of put into the rolling forecast of that governmental organization says, oh, but in August we were supposed to have X million income in tax. Where is the last 5% here? Oh, is that more people leaving the system? Shoot, what we're going to do? Oh, let's put out some more fear, right? I haven't even put here the media and all of that. This is how it works. Picture the whole thing as one big company is like steering, and it's like, oh my goodness, we need to, keep customers in. We need to distract them from any other things. We need to make them dependent, blah, 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 all the things. And this is where you come in, because I know you have been seeing through these things before. Maybe you haven't seen all of that nicely put together like this, maybe. And the question now is it now all bad? Is it lost? And is the next step that you just focus on saving yourself, maybe your family, but take care of yourself, how to step out, you don't watch the news, you move to another country, move to live off grid, and that is now the concept. Find an island where there's Wi-Fi and electricity, and then the rest will find itself, and somehow you're all going to survive. And that is how you protect yourself and your loved ones, and you are just leaving that because it is actually energetically really hard to stay in connection with that. All right, is that the solution? Is that the next step? No, because I said in the beginning, there is so much potential in that. Just that the thing is, the potential does not lie within any of these boxes. The potential does not lie in trying to reinvent from within. This is what a lot of people are still trying at the moment, and what the whole system has tried over the past 10, 15 years. Oh, let's reinvent the fashion industry. Oh, let's reinvent how we work in big corporations, call it new work. Okay, just 2 examples. There's so many things where people try to do this, and it has just prolonged the longevity, I'd say, of the system, of that area of it for a little bit. The real solution is, again, you come into play, we need you, is to create completely outside of all of that which exists. Again, the solution is to create our advanced world, an advanced world outside of all of this. And that takes several things, okay? And I'll get to that as well. Maybe you're already excited. Maybe you're like, oh my goodness, this is now my time. This is really my time. I knew it all along, but I never felt like it is time now. It is, okay? It is. And again, I've opened up some areas here for you to get an idea of what that actually means. I'm aware I'm not keeping 40 minutes. And to be honest, I don't care, because I feel this is important. I feel this is relevant. You can pause the video if you catch the replay. Keep watching some point else, that's all good. Or you just keep watching on this here because you feel fascinated and you are curious on feeling into and knowing, hearing what actually means when we create the advanced world, okay? Have your own interpretation for a second as well, while we already have the new business model slide on here. When you tap into this advanced world, right? I on purpose did not call it the new world or the new earth, because to me it is really, we have to advance. We have to create an advanced way, because we are overall, and the planet overall is in an advanced movement. Advanced in the way that it is a next generation, a next step in evolution, in the overall frequency of the planet rising and ascending. With that, the population overall in energy is rising and in frequency. Maybe you are feeling this as well. Maybe you are very much on purpose and in dedication are moving through that because you know it is serving and you know that is the path that you need to get on. Maybe you have just discovered these things and it still feels a little bit, ooh, I'm not sure. How can I really tap into these things? Am I supposed to really believe that there is more than I can see, right? Let me assure you, yes, there is. And it is the baseline, the conceptual baseline of creating these new things. Does not mean you have to sit and meditate 15 hours a day and then some magical fairy is going to come and, No. It's very down to earth. It is just a different way of operating, and that's why I'm calling it an advanced world. It means we rethink how we create all of these things in a completely new way. And it also includes letting go of the mind concepts and the constructs of how things have been created in the past, and then pondering on, okay, if it was like this before, how can we from there take it and advance it? And this will just lead you into a dead end. Again, this is important when you try to look at either any of these sectors that we're going to look at, and you approach it from, okay, this is how it has been done before. How from this point onwards can we advance it and develop further and bring evolution? This is a dead end. What we need is really forget about everything that you already knew. And when you hear business model, oh, how else can I create something that generates an outcome in a serving way, in a completely different way? And this is the question for all of these sectors, all right? So for example, here it means business models that are based on community contribution, on empowerment, like community empowerment, and on service that are, and this is important, that are profitable and where everyone contributes in multiple ways. So it does not mean, a lot of people, when it's about community-based approaches, think of the old communistic systems, right? Everything is owned by everyone and everything is shared. When you look into these systems, it was never that way. It was a controlled setup. There was somebody at the top controlling the distribution of everything. And this is exactly the opposite, right? It means everyone is contributing in the value creation and at the same time is participating in the value outcome. But it is not in the sense that somebody up here on top level is saying, oh, okay, this is what you can have. And then like in the old, like the eastern part of Germany before it was reunited, you know, the Trabant, the cars, you know, you ordered one. And at some point, somewhere in the government would say, okay, now 5 years later, Mr. B, this is now the day when you get your car. And then Mrs. C, next door neighbor, oh, yours is going to be due in like 5 weeks, you know, but the people in there, they had no influence on that, right? They were just like, oh, here's your function. You work in this factory or you work in whatever that function. So this is how you provide into the system, how you serve the system. And then the system is going to send you back something, in this example, the car. But when this is going to happen and if you're really going to get this, it's not your decision and not your choice and not in your power, because somebody else, another power above, was going to decide that. And this is exactly not what we're doing here, okay? This is not what we're doing. It is basically, and this is the way to think about this in a new way, take some time to get your brain and your mind used to that, because at some point it will be overwhelming. The idea here is to be able to conceptualize multidimensionally, right? And I don't mean that in a spiritual way. I really mean it in a way where you process-based think multidimensionally, and also in incoming and outcoming contributions multidimensionally. So that, what is that? If it sounds a little bit cryptic, okay. So what could that mean? You have business models where people are working in a business, and most of them will be, not all of them, obviously, because we still need supply chains, right? And this is another thing that could come in here, but it can also be 3 or 4 types, 5 types of different online business models. Maybe one is connected to something in crypto. Maybe one is connected to something on affiliate marketing. Maybe, you know, it's just 2 random examples. There's so many more opportunities and options to do that. But let's say there's 2, 3, 4 of these business models, and people are contributing to that one way or the other. And even it starts here by rethinking the whole idea, right? By doing the thing that they do. Maybe it is content creation in some way. Maybe it is mining a Bitcoin. You know, this is again snapshots, but this is an activity as part of the business model. So the result of the action is contributing value into the business model. then something else can be bought or sold, and this is the transaction again is creating added value. Okay, so what if the person who's content creating or mining the Bitcoin, for example, while they're doing it, because they're moving in the way they are moving, this again is connected to another system of, I'd say, remuneration or creation. I've seen a startup, they are not completely done yet, but first beta testing phases, right? Where they figured that we emit energy, especially when we get excited, right? When we get into energy of excitement, we emit energy, we send energy. And how cool would that be if you could capture that energy? So what if every time we would be moving in a certain way, in an excitement, frequency, and energy, we emit energy? That would also mean value creation into a system. And imagine 7 billion people be daily just a mini, tiny amount of energy in the form of that could be then translated into, for example, electricity. If you could transform that, or you could store that somewhere, fuel a battery, right? These type of things, think of that. So you have one person who's just content creating, but there's so many other ways. That's what I meant with multidimensionality, right? You feed a system. Maybe we will have several kind of a private community-owned economy. I talked about this concept with my very first podcast guest that I recorded last week. He is part of building one of these privately community-owned economy systems, right? And my feeling is we will have multiple of these, and then everything that is generated goes into like a pool. But again, the pool is, if it's stored on the blockchain, it is publicly owned. So it's not going in some centralized place where there is a political party leading, or a government kind of regulating something. It's all defined at the other level. It's clear legal frames, it's clear operational frames and rules, and it's open. And then also, if you as the individual, right, you withdraw money from it as well to, I don't know, pay for housing or pay for food or whatever it is. And it's fragmented and it's distributed in a completely different way. So, and I'm just getting started about this, okay? So not to confuse you, but can you understand how the thinking around this, the conceptualizing, is completely different? This is what is already in the making. So if this excites you and you feel like, oh my goodness, I've had so many ideas that go in a direction and all of these things, like there must be another way, and I'm, you're getting downloads, or you already have like half concept, but you just didn't know where to put that, reach out to me. I'm dealing with people like that all of the time. Or I can also help you get to the inner point of view to have more clarity and to be the person who can actually bring that into existence. That's what I meant. We need you. Okay? So, and the podcast, by the way, I'm recording is called Trust to Disrupt. It's going to come some point later this year. I've just started recording interviews with amazing guests, and you can on Spotify already. If you Google that, Trust to Disrupt, there's like a 2-minute entry episode, like the very first just introduction. If you want to get a very first taste, you can already hop over there, follow, so you won't miss, put on the notification thing once things start to drop, okay? So then, technology. I have like three, 4 other areas here, okay? And then we're about to close this. Now you've understood that we look at business models in a completely new way. Forget everything that you learned, forget everything the way that it is set up now, right? And then technology, the new way, the advanced way to use technology, to look at technology. Think AI, but not only, okay? It is used to facilitate what we've just seen, the business models, for example, right? Technology, also the blockchain technology. Maintain data ownership. Think about, and sovereignty, right, with the individual, unless they choose differently. Think about what I shared about the digital currencies, the digital euro, the digital dollar, etc. You don't own that data. In these models, you do. That is the difference. We can digitize all of that. If you look at money, right, we can digitize all of that without going into the doomsday version of, oh my goodness, you are the completely transparent customer, and the government knows all of your ways. Oh, you ate too much sugar. Oh, you, I don't know, overspent, blah, blah, blah. And then potentially someone could be controlling what you have access to and what not. In these ways, no, because you own the data, unless you want to say, okay, I'm sharing a part of my data for the sake of science or for whatever, but it's in your choice. Can you understand how that means you're sovereign? This is no codependency. This is freedom. This is your freedom of choice, what you want to share, how and where, because you own it. It also brings with that responsibility in a different way. And that is what a lot of people will be needing to learn. Okay. A sharing economy, briefly, overall, right? We need the idea of a sharing economy spread in a wider diversity of industries. We already know the sharing economy from mobility. We have car sharing, for example, or Airbnb and the like took the house sharing to another level over the last years, right? But let's think the idea of that. Is there more things where we can implement that? That for me is one of the few things, because they already function a little bit like a bridge, right, into the advanced world, where we can still take a little bit of a look at, okay, what is there and which parts of these are serving for what we need in the advanced world. Okay. I personally still don't believe that the whole car sharing thing, the way it is now, or even the house sharing thing as it is now, right? If you look at the markets of Airbnb and the like, there's also a lot of turmoil going on, and I feel that is for a reason. They had their share in the evolution journey in how we live and in housing and real estate and all of that, to break it open, right? It was a huge revolution when they entered the market and broke through. They cracked it open. And I feel there is another thing going to come to be cracked open in that space, when you ask the question how we're actually going to live and how we're actually going to travel, right? There will be a lot of evolution. And again, when we look at a complete white plate, it's like, how would we conceptualize today living? That might potentially be different than any of the models of today, or most of the models of today, right? And then, but the sharing idea, maybe that is to be considered in a different way as well, right? Apply it to a wider variety. And I don't mean we cannot own anything anymore. We absolutely can. Just let's ask the question, where is it not purposeful? Where is it not really serving? Where is it just using up resources for the sake of ego-driven status, right? We can still own stuff. Great. So let's find balance in here. And then we have the health and the food sectors. Big sector. And I put them together on purpose, again, because health starts with food. If we better understand how our bodies function, how we can keep this beautiful vessel in a good state, talking longevity, talking vitality, talking strength, right? So we don't have to worry about that. When I said before, the current funnel of the health systems is like, oh, you're now in your 30s. Oh, great, take these pills. Oh, now you're in your 50s. Oh, this is diseases that you will have. Oh, maybe an indication for that. So please, right? Getting away from that and really coming from the other side. And that also starts with food, obviously. And obviously it starts also with taking from the Western medical system that is gut feeling, 10 to 20%, that is really serving and that is great innovation and very helpful, like surgery when people got into an accident or something like that. It's great. And then let's take the other 80% of ancient knowledge about plant healing, about self-healing, about all of these modalities, right? Our bodies are designed in such an incredible way that for a lot of things, we don't really need external medication beyond maybe a few plant-based things that will support and help us in processes. But if you look at your physical symptoms of the body being the last resort of expression of things that you have not addressed before, on an emotional level, on an identity level, on a mindset level, on a somatic level overall, right? Then there's different ways and modalities in which you can treat everything and bring about healing. This is all of the ancient knowledge about how we function as a human, with our human side, but then also with what is beyond, right? On your highest self side or your intuition side, however you want to call that. And then bring back all of the beautiful knowledge that we have, the very ancient knowledge about anything on plants, which is supportive in healing, in regenerating, in providing what our bodies need, okay? And also, again, in this sector, there's so much already existing. Communities, companies, solutions, people who just know, the old wisdom keepers. Think in your environment of people that you know. I bet there's at least one person that you know. Maybe they don't run a business yet, but they have a hell lot of knowledge about what tea to take, or which microdosing thing to take, or which plants to use for healing, or whatever it is. Or they're in the process of learning that, because it's coming back and back and back more and more, and it's beautiful, because we're going to take that as well into the advanced world and build it into the system so that it is accessible. Which brings me to this, saying accessible. What is stopping the accessibility and the visibility, and also this big shift, right, towards, oh, let's look over here. All of the card houses here are about to fall down, or part of them have already fallen down. So where are we going to go, and how are we going to handle all of us? How are we going to handle ourselves, and how can we handle and provide alternative solutions? Again, you cannot force anyone to join something or to go somewhere, but you can provide more of that. And I know you're watching this because you are one of the people, you know, you're meant to take an important role and a relevant role in bringing all of these new things, the advanced way of things. And I can't really even say new, because there is so many things that are more ancient, but we just got to market and package them and make them accessible in a new way, in an advanced way, okay? In the way of 2025, 6, 7, 8, 9, for the next at least 15, 20, 30 years. I don't know what's going to come then, but at least for that time, make it more accessible, more visible, and let more people see the opportunities, alternatives, because that is what most people are going to need once more of the old is crumbling. Because what's going to happen, just picture that, over a course of maybe 3 months, all of a sudden 2 to 4 million, a billion people on the planet will be in a state of such uncertainty, fear, disorientation. And if you know a little bit about psychology, about human behavior, chances are you can move in one direction or in the other direction. The other direction is preferably them looking around for alternatives to, oh, where can I turn now? What can I do now? How can I create my life in a different way? And then let them have more access to all of these options that I've just briefly touched, and that we need to create more, this advanced ways of, right? The other side where potentially someone could also turn to is the very aggressive way or the very depressed way. Sometimes both go very much together. Imagine that again with a higher number of people, more or less at the same time, moving through that. And again, you cannot force anyone to make choices, but we can, I feel, contribute. And I also feel it is our, in a way, our duty and our responsibility, because we can, right? Because we can, because you have the ability to promote and support these advanced world, advanced ways of all of the areas of life, basically, to provide them and give more access and more visibility and spread the word if you want, even if it's word by mouth, mouth by word, how you say that? You know what I mean, right? Or if that is somewhere digital, it doesn't matter. So what is stopping that? The biggest thing, there's one big thing that is stopping this. And maybe you have an idea what that is. Because if you have the power to create this and to support this advanced version, what potentially is the one big thing that is coming in the way. Take a deep breath. Feel into your heart. What could that be? And yes, you may feel it creeping up, maybe with a smile. It is you. The big thing that could potentially stop this and potentially get in the way is you. And I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. It is too important. It is too relevant. And on top of that, it is too urgent for you to be the stopping element to create our advanced world, right? That's why I'm saying all of you visionary future makers, you get to step up now courageously. I know it takes courage. It takes a hell lot of courage to be standing outside everything that is existing and to still be there in full trust, in power, to not feel stressed or exhausted or overwhelmed or tap into self-doubt or, all of the things, and have your body reacting into complete anxiety and stress and fear, which naturally potentially happens because as a human, you are still wired, we're all still wired, wanting to belong. What we need, this is the biggest challenge I see with visionary people, to come to a state for yourself personally of authenticity, inner peace, clarity, and sovereignty, to be standing here crystal clear in what your part of that mission is, and be communicating and sending and be creating, even if no one else is telling you, oh, that's amazing, right? This is beyond the regular entrepreneurial journey where when you remember back then when you started, everyone around you, your family, your friends were like, oh my goodness, it's never going to work. What you're going to do, this is so crazy. Oh my goodness, you're just going to fail. I'm not so sure if that is a great idea, what you're doing. Yes, you've been through that part. That was a small scale of that. And you know what it's like to move through these growth phases. You leave behind a lot of people. You create a little bit more distance to certain other people. Setting new boundaries, who gets access to your energy, who gets access to your time. Now again, it is time. Remember, I addressed in the beginning these two groups of visionaries. The hidden ones, that might be you. You build it all up in your industry. Maybe you're a business coach. Maybe you have built a great business in real estate. Maybe you have a flourishing e-commerce business. You mastered all of the things of what the industry has been teaching over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. You build it all up, and that has been great. There's no shame about that. There's no judgment about that. It's great because now it gives you the baseline to shift. Either you shift with that thing or you create something new next to it. But the growth step means the courage you need now is to really show you as your authentic self. And maybe you have not discovered yet what actually that means, even though you feel the inner calling. That what makes you feel a bit weird, what makes you feel bored with what you've been doing, maybe even gets you feeling exhausted, and then tapping into, gosh, I want the other thing. I want more alignment. I want more fulfillment. And I want to serve in a bigger way because I know I'm meant to be. But I'm feeling fear of losing momentum of the running and the current business or businesses, fear of losing what you've created financially, but also maybe in reputation, what you stand for in your industry, in your field, right? That is you're torn in between these things and you can't see yet what is your way out. You need to disrupt the thing, break it open in order to step full into this role that you have as a visionary. Or if you're more type 2, right? Also certain level of success, maybe not as much as the first group, but significant, it's working, right? Still, you've been all your life, and you've been knowing that you are this different person, right? You're doing things different. Maybe you've been that outsider. You've overcome a lot of adversity. Maybe an ex kind of fighter, the rebel. You found some peace. You've mastered yourself to a great level, right? Other people who've been through what you went through potentially have gone into addiction, potentially have already died, or in depression, whatever, but you're not, because you conquered. Still, now at the level, you hit this big plateau where potentially you come into conflicts with people who you thought, oh, this is a business partner, there's potential to grow further, I'm doing very well here, this is a great connection on the people end. You're having interesting development in your relationships where you did not see coming, where breaks happened, or somebody you feel betrayed you one way or the other, right? And that drives you back in your nutshell on your lonely island, and you don't understand why things are not keeping on growing. Again, for you, this means you need to get beyond yourself the next time. And I know this information sucks because you've done so much work on yourself. You've done so much work on yourself. But right now is a time where you need to step up again. I promise it's not going to be as intensive and as exhausting as it was in the other phases that you went through. And I speak from existence because I'm that category 2 visionary, right? So I speak from experience. But still you need to step up again through that. You need to open up another part of you within that you thought you already had opened everything or enough to fully be open. Trust me, there is an area within you in your heart space and probably also somewhere in your sacral space where your creation power lies, but mostly in your heart space, there is another part that is still locked, and you need to open that and unlock in order to keep growing and to, again, likewise the other first group here of the visionaries, the hidden visionaries, for you to step into that bigger purpose that you hold. You're fucking meant to be leading in this advanced world because you have visionary concepts and you see the world like no one else. You can see potential so much faster than anyone else, and we need that, but we need you in a healthy way. We need you in an evolved way as well. And this is where you are the stopping element at the moment in creating this advanced world, all right? Where we need to get you is into a higher share of you that is from intuitive soul-led decision making. This part of you gets to rise and increase. And to break it down quickly short, the way I teach this, you are wired in a human side and what I'm calling a soul side. You can also say your higher self side or your intuitive side, right? The human side is your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your physical body, your vessel, and extrapolate it a little bit on purpose, your nervous system. Obviously it's part of your body, but to be looked at as standalone as well, because a healthy nervous system determines if you can operate without being in survival. You can still operate in a high-performing way without being in survival, okay? So on that human side of you, those of you who have done a lot of work will have gotten to a certain level of mastery and balance of that side. If you're one of the group of the hidden visionaries, it may be that you have done a lot of mindset work and tapped into first emotional releases, etc., and maybe you've done first nervous system work, but there's still a lot for you to do into more mastery of that, okay? Potentially, it's what I'm seeing usually with that group of people. The rebel visionaries, you will have gotten to quite a high level of mastery, but you just got to step up one next step. But the majority of work here usually is done. And then the second half, when we are human side, when you can balance and master that at a higher level, that is self-leadership, by the way, in one half of it, it automatically means your brain, who thinks it is the CEO, will move away from that chair and join the operations team. So the CEO chair will be populated by your soul side, your intuitive side. You can say that is your heart or your soul or your higher self, whatever you want to call that which you are more than your body. that which you are more than your human parts, your brain, okay, your logical thinking, your analytical mind. Because your analytical mind, as amazing as it is, it really sucks at making great decisions because it's so limited and it's driven by past experiences, right? What we want, the best decision maker within you, if you learn to retrust it, and if you relearn to understand and interpret its language, is your soul, your intuition, your higher self, however you want to call it, your heart, right? And that gets to be placed back on the CEO chair. For that part, you need your soul side or your intuitive side to be reactivated and to remember. And that has two sides as well. One is the wisdom that you carry in your DNA. That is access to innate wisdom that you carry. There's your own wisdom of your soul across lifetimes and the wisdom of all of your ancestry, which you have access to as well. That has been handed down and passed down to you generation after generation after generation. And then the wisdom that you carry from your own soul journey across lifetimes, right? From past lives, from whenever. You can reactivate that. That is all stored in your DNA. Believe it or not, right? If you're hearing that for the first time, I'm inviting you to just allow the opportunity that this is a reality, that is a possibility, okay? That is one side. The second side, the second half of this is your, you could call that your supernatural senses. While they should just be called natural senses, they have just been forgotten over time because of how we've been educated over the last 100, 200 years, right? But that is all of your channels that will open up more the higher you vibrate. And this is where we're back at evolution of rising frequency of the planet and humanity overall. And obviously that reflects back to you as an individual as well. And the higher you move in vibration of frequencies, just like radio stations, the more channels of information will open up for you. In my case, it is the light languages from the cosmic parts that I can channel, where I get information for clients that I work with, downloads for them, pieces of information that they need to help them remember, downloads, whatever cosmic support we're getting. And there's a lot. Even if that sounds a bit crazy right now, trust me, there's so much more, just like radio stations, so much more information that you can get in order to, what is the purpose of all of that? Helping you make the decisions and be guide yourself towards the creation of everything that we need for the advanced world. And I'm not saying there's like a plan where some power outside of you is like a puppet on a string kind of steering you. It's not. It is your own sovereignty. You will always be in the decision-making part. It is your consciousness, your soul, who is leading and guiding from the inner knowing. And the radio station information is just some additional information for you to take into consideration and then come through with your own truth and authentic truth that will guide your decision making. And from that, you will have the clarity. What is your role? What you're supposed to sell? What you're supposed to create? Who you're supposed to collaborate with, etc., etc. And this may change through you going through these processes, right? So it starts with you. As much as you potentially can be the stopping element from the creation of this advanced world, likewise, you have the highest power, and it starts with you. And basically, that is what I've just described to support you get exactly to there on all of the levels, including what it means with regards to business, strategy, direction, business model, where does it fit into this advanced world, in any of these areas. This is the work I do. This is exactly why people hire me, because they are one of the two groups I've described, and they come to the point of understanding, this is where I need to go, but I can't see how I get there. And then we're going to do the work together. We break everything open that we need to break open for disrupting yourself as much as it is needed. And from there, we step into this new operating mode of creating. This is when you heard me speak or saw content of mine saying we're all moving, and you get to and need to move into a different way of operating. That's what it means, where you let go more and more of linearity in operating and more bring in operating in the quantum way. It's also what I said when I spoke about the new business model construction in the advanced world, where we operate more on multiple levels, multidimensionality simultaneously. In order to create that and facilitate that, your whole way of operating gets to align to that. And that's what we do, right? That's the work that we do. Amazing, my loves. I am so proud of you that you stayed on here, that you're watching. Let me know what you think. So I'll leave that here to you. I know this is a long video. Again, if you're catching this here now, please let me know in the comments, wherever you're catching this, what you think, questions you might have. If you want to work with me, if you want to check out what are the options, just send me a message. If that's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, even if you're on YouTube and you find this on YouTube, send me a comment. There is in the other part of the channel, there's information where you can reach out to me. Email address, just contact me, send me whatever question you have if you're interested in that. There's lots of options to work one-on-one, short-term, long-term. I'm also doing in-person, individual work, so we can meet up for a weekend or an extended weekend and, get it all done in a faster way, in a compressed way. It's also possible and it works well. Amazing. This has been so much fun to me, and I know it's long, it's 1.5 hours, but I felt this needs to get out. Take your time to listen to that. There is a lot of information. Also allow yourself to pause or to re-listen to certain parts of this. And I hope to get in touch with you. Either way, say hello, let me hear what you think, let me know any questions that you have, and please do say hello when you watch this. Have a great evening, morning, night, wherever you are, and I'll see you soon.